Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you how to connect Voicemeeter Potato to Presonus Studio One. The first thing I need to do is to select Voicemeeter. As you can see, my Studio 1810C is here. I don't want that for this. So I'm going to switch to Voicemeeter Potato Insert. You can ignore all these other Voicemeeter ones. It's this one that you're interested in if it's Voicemeeter Potato you're using. Okay. Next, what we do is we create a song. Let's call this a Voicemeeter connection, let's say. There you go. We want it at 48 Hertz, 32 floats, fine. You might want to use frames there instead of seconds, depending on what you're doing. And click OK. And it opens up to this arrangement view. Now I don't need this panel on the right showing, so I'm going to just unselect that. But what I do want is this mix panel showing. Now it's currently empty. And you can add inputs, you can add outputs, and you'll also be able to add tracks in a minute. But before we do that, we need to set up our inputs and outputs. They're set up like my 1810C is, so that's no good for this. So I'm going to just remove all of those, and I'll remove all the outputs as well. You can't get rid of the main one. So there we are. So now we need to add our input devices. So let's pick something from Voicemeeter. Let's just keep this a little bit simpler than normal. Just keep the video nice and short and concise. So we'll take our 80, 20, 35 and our system in. Now we want to send those over to Studio One. So first off, we come in here, system options. We don't need that, we don't need that, but we do want system in left and right. You could do the whole 8 channels, but we're only really interested in left and right. Now, if you notice, these channels here correspond to these. So these are all of the devices that are available to Voicemeeter. It's only the one, it can only look at one device, which is the Voicemeeter Potato, or it could look at my 1810C instead, but it can't look at both. These are all of the things that are available from Voicemeeter Potato. But we don't need to use all of those. So what we're doing is setting up the ones we are going to use for whatever we're going to be doing. So we've got one microphone, which is going to be a stereo signal. So we add that mono and we call that 80, 20, 35. And we want to listen to the left channel because that's going to appear on the left channel on Voicemeeter. You notice it's grayed out till you click apply down here. There you are, now it goes solid. So what we also wanted our system audio, so let's call that system, and that is 6L and 6R, which are over there. Again, we can apply it. You could just apply it at the end when you've done them all. You can add them in blocks, so like I can add, say, like 5 stereo devices like that, and then you can color them if you want to, and then like you'll just do that, and it guesses where you want them. Something to note here is you can listen to the same one on more than one track. So for example, I could have this input 2 here, the same as that, and listen to the same one as the system. Now what that means is I can do different processing on this channel to that channel and then send them to different places. What I can't do is I can't listen to more than one track on one of these. So I can't also collect, one of these tracks. If I do that, it tries to move it. and there's nothing you can do about that. There are ways to mix it within the system itself, but you can't do it at this point. I don't need any of these, so I'm going to delete them again. That was just a demo. Now the outputs, we can decide whether we want to use the main or not. I'm going to say not in this case, and add a stereo and add another stereo. Now the first stereo is going to be our 80/20/35. Now I could have added a mono there and it would have gone back to Voicemeeter as a mono device, or I can put it in stereo like I have done, which means it comes in as mono and Studio One will send it back as a stereo signal. And this one is going to be a system. As I've mentioned in a couple of my previous videos, Voicemeeter's input and output, when it uses ASIO, which is what this is doing in the background, what it will do is it will send signal out of there. So it'll come in, goes off to wherever, Studio One, or in this case, or Audition, and I've shown that in a separate video. And then it comes back in before this slider, so it's still on the input side. On an audio interface, the outputs available would be on the output side, but that's not how it works with Voicemeeter, which is quite good. So these are the same as these. So let's say, yeah, so that's still on, that's on channel 6 and that's in stereo. That's the inputs. The outputs, we want that to come back in where it went out, but only in stereo. And then channel 6, left and right there. Now notice I can choose whichever one of these I want. So I could have it going out to a different one to where it came in. This is actually, those aren't linked. The inputs aren't linked to the outputs. So this isn't linking inputs and outputs at all. That will be done later. This is just setting up inputs. These just work as basically as shortcuts to these available devices, and you can give them friendly names and things like that. Okay, so if I click inputs and outputs, you see the inputs we set up are there and the outputs we set up are there. If it didn't have that input stage and all of the devices that were visible, there'd be 20 inputs and 20 outputs. So this just lets us choose the ones we want. Now we can add some tracks, which is what we will do here. We want one mono track. Let's have that as blue. And we'll call that our mic. And we'll add another track. And this one will be green. Doesn't really matter. This one's a stereo one. And we only want one. If you click more than one, it will just create more, but it calls them all the same thing, which is just can be confusing. If you're doing a lot, maybe it's useful. Like if you've got 5 guitars or something, then it might work. But when you're dealing with things that are all different devices, it's probably easier just to take the time and go through them one by one. You see, it does give you some inputs and outputs to select there. It gives you all of them on the output. So I want that one to be my system. So I'm going to click system there. The input is the system, but notice how it doesn't give me the mic option. That's because this is a stereo channel. If I'd clicked mono there, it would give me the mono option, the only one available. And here it's giving me the system input and the output's the system output. Just note, if you set up more devices, they'll all be in there. So all the mono devices and all the stereo devices will appear. So that's kind of set up how we want it. I didn't do this one in there, so I'll do that now. It's already picked the only mono device available. There were 2 outputs, and look, it's selected main. I don't want main. I want it to go back to where it came in. which is a stereo on the way out. So that's a lot of what we wanted done. If I just pop back here, I want to show you something else. If you click this Qmix button, what it will do is send a copy of that to the main. So even if you're not sending it to that thing in here, it will still go out to the main. I mean, that can be useful. It's not very well explained. It just calls it Qmix, and you're supposed to just know what that means. But that's what it does. It confused me for such a long time. Now we've got our track set up as we want. I'm not really interested in this arrangement because if you're recording, this is where it will all record. So if you're doing a podcast or you're recording music, then that's where it will be. But I'm really only interested in doing some processing and then sending it all back. So I'm going to move that all the way up there. And I don't really need my inputs and outputs shown, but I'll leave them for now while I'm testing to make sure they work, and then I can get rid of them. I can get rid of them afterwards. Okay, so I've now connected my 80-20-35. Turned it on, I've applied the phantom power. So you can see that signal is coming in here on this input. But it's not over here. So why is it not there? I'm not recording this microphone, by the way. It's just here. It's this one here. So it can pick up my voice, but it's just to demonstrate the signals coming in. So if we click monitor there it is. It appears there, and look, because we've already routed it, it appears over there as well. Okay, so that's going over. Now, what about in Voicemeeter? So it should be going back to Voicemeeter, and it is, and it's got, look, it's not in mono, but it's come back. It's come back in mono because it turned it into a stereo signal, and now it's come back in, which is what we wanted to do. That's doing what that's working as intended. If I change this, if I change this output to leave it in place, but let's just add a mono one. And put it there. Then on this track here, we want it to go back in mono. It now comes in on just the one. See, you can bring it a bit closer. Yeah, you can see it's only going out. It's still got that little bit of feedback and background noise there, but I'm not sure what's causing that, but the signal is clearly only on the one side. Okay, right, well, we don't want that. So we'll go back in here and we'll put it on there. I'm going to leave that for just a second, and I'm going to show you something else. We'll move that mono one to channel 4 left. You need to switch that back to 80-25 there, and there it is, back where it's supposed to be there. I'm going to add another track. This is going to be the mono track. We're going to choose the 80-25, and this time I'm going to send it back there. Now remember, I've sent this to channel 4, to the left hand side of channel 4. So let's monitor that one as well. Let's go in here, and number 4 is there. We'll just do the left. We only need the left. So, and there it is. Look, there it is. There's my mono signal. I've sent it out here, brought it back in there in stereo, and also sent a copy of it in mono to number 4. So that can be useful. So for example, you could have a clean mic and a original mic source. So a condenser mic is really noisy and it's got lots of, it'll pick up everything. Now you might do some processing on that. And then you have your two mics available in Voicemeeter, both the one with the cleaning up and one without the cleaning up. And then if you click mono there, it then goes into stereo here. So here's something you could use. Now my audio interface has got 4 XLR ports on. So there's 1 and 2 in one pair and 3 and 4 in another pair. But a lot of them, you know, a smaller one will only have 2 XLR ports, but they're on 1 stereo channel. So what this would let you do, you create 2 mono inputs, one from the first channel, one from the second channel, and you could create 2 stereo outputs and you send them back to different places. I hope that makes sense. So what you would do in that scenario is in your inputs, you would have a second mono on number 2. So that would pick up the right hand side of this, which would be, in my case, would be the second XLR port on my audio interface. And then in the outputs, you'd have a second stereo, so you could do that in stereo and send that to 4 left and 4 right, and that to 1 left and 1 right. And then you've got 2 stereo microphones. And you might need to do that for a podcast, something like that. Not too much more on that then, because that's going off topic a little bit. Okay, so now you're here. Let's remove this track just to keep it simple again. Put this out of the way. Sends and inserts. So your inserts are like filters and things. So like you click on that and you can say you want a noise gate. You wouldn't want a noise gate on your system necessarily, but so you can noise gate on there, and then there it is, and then you get your noise gate. I've done other videos on messing with noise gates. I'm not gonna do that here, but that's where you will put it on. You can power it up and power it off. What else could you do? You do a condenser or not. You do an expander. There you go. There's the expander. Not condenser, compressor. That's what I wanted to do. Compressor. There you go. There's your compressor. There we are. Right. Now, the basic version of Studio One, the free version called Studio One Prime, doesn't have the expander and compressor. It has a channel strip. And the compressor's there and the expander's there. But if you've got Studio One Artist, which is this version, the middle version, it does have them. I don't know about the gate. I don't know whether it has a gate or not in the basic version. And the Pro version as well, which has even more stuff. Now, sends. What you can do with sends is you can like send it to different places as well. So I could send that to the main. There you go, and then it's appeared on the main now because I've sent it over there. There's a type of track called a bus channel. So if you select, is that selected? Yeah, that's selected. And if you say add a bus, now the bus track has sends, which means you can direct it to other places. You can do other stuff. I mean, you can set the volume that it goes to different places. You're going down a bit of a rabbit hole with this without a specific example of how you might use it, but you can send more than one thing to that bus track. Let's just remove it, and I'll show you with this and this. Add a bus track, then we'll do the send and say to main. Okay, so there's also VCA now. The VCA, basically it's a controller for the volume of all those. So like if I move this, all of the channels it's connected to move, but you notice it doesn't have a send. So where that bus track, you kind of gather everything from these previous channels and then send them elsewhere. the VCA just controls, it's like you stuck an elastic band around those two and then just controlled the elastic band with that one and just like pulled it down. If they're in relatively different positions, it maintains it. So you see they'll go back to where they were. And the other way around. But that's it, really. I mean, that's the story. You can hide the inputs, hide the outputs. Once this is set up the way you want, you've got like this control panel that controls all your music sources using Voicemeeter. There's plenty to play with. And given that most of it's included in the Prime version, which is free, then I should say I think VCA or Bus isn't available. One of the two isn't available in Prime. Can't remember which one it isn't. So anyway, I hope that's of some use. I've at least shown you how to connect it back. But for now, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you want to catch me live, I stream on YouTube from about 9 PM UK time most nights. Drop by and say hello.